I love baseball cards. Got 'em, need 'em, got 'em, need 'em, need 'em, need 'em, got 'em, need 'em.
Welcome to another episode of Remember the Great Sports. This is a card show pickups video. Recently I just hit a card show and I had roughly of a budget of about $100 at the card show, and I want to share with you over the 2 days that I went to this card show. It was a mall show, so it's like a 3-day show, but I went 2 days in a row basically. I bought so much stuff and went through so many cards the first day. I didn't get to everybody's table, so I felt like I had to go back a second day. So with that being said, I'm going to share with you the items that I bought. After I go through each section, I'll tell you how much I paid collectively for everything. Some of these items are going to have some price stickers on them. However, I tell you, just don't pay attention to those, because despite the price tag that was on some of these things, I had a few dollars knocked off even more from the total price. So let's jump right in here. I'm going to start off the batch with some autographs and some game used cards. We're going to get into some vintage cards in football and baseball here in a little bit, but let's just get the new stuff out of the way. And here's your host, Starscream. You will be part of this video as well. So that's whose legs you're looking at in the background there. And let's jump right into this. Alright, so if you guys recall my last card show that I attended, I found a Calvin Murphy signed card. Sorry, I just bumped the camera there. But could you believe that I went back 3 months later at a completely different vendor's table and found the same exact autograph card? It's not the exact same autograph card, but the same set, a signed Calvin Murphy card. So I now am the owner of 2 of these signed Calvin Murphy cards. So I'm very happy to have that in my collection, because why wouldn't you want a Hall of Famer? And hopefully that's not too dark. We'll move that up. So I moved them up so you could see them a little bit better instead of messing with the camera angle. So number one, I found the same exact Calvin Murphy autograph that I found at the card show a few months earlier. Now, I'm going to save this one for last. Now, on the theme of basketball, we'll stick with that for the moment. These were all the same seller. I've mentioned many times that the San Antonio Spurs are my favorite team. David Robinson, my favorite player. Tim Duncan probably being my second favorite player. So I'm just going to show all of these to you at one time. And this is a Tim Duncan jersey, and it is serial numbered to 99. And this is out of, I think, Topps Immaculate, or Panini Immaculate, excuse me. Got my, looks like 2015, 2016, so very cool to have that. Now the second one is out of Panini Threads, and this is 2014-15. This one also is numbered to 99, so that jersey. And finally, this one looks like a little bit older, only because of the card design, and I am correct, it looks like a 2002 card, and it is in a hard case, magnetic case, and this is when Tim was still playing. But this is a Topps, I guess, authentic game-worn NBA jersey, and this is highlighting the 1999 San Antonio Spurs, championship, the first year that they won, and he was the MVP. The odds of that being a game-worn piece of that jersey are pretty slim, in my opinion. Yeah, I think it just talks about the game. I don't think it means that that was a piece of that jersey that he wore during that. So all 3 of those jersey cards, sorry about the glare there, all right, So that's another part of this deal. Now, staying on the basketball theme, he also had some college greats cards, and these are San Antonio Spurs, a couple of them. So we'll stay on that theme. And this is a Vinny Del Negro, North Carolina State autograph. And that is from, it looks like Upper Deck, 2014-15 Upper Deck Letterman collection. So that's that. And San Antonio teammate Sean Elliott on, what is this, 2014-15 March Madness NCAA Collegiate Collection. So Sean Elliott. So that's it for the Spurs. However, I was also able to grab a Derek Harper out of that same collection. And this depicts him as a University of Illinois Fighting Illini. I am from the state of Illinois, so I thought this was extra special to grab this one. Also, you just don't see too many Derek Harper autographs out there. You know, they're not the easiest to come by. But I thought this was a very cool U of I card of him. You know, probably one of the greatest players to ever play at the University of Illinois. Kendall Gill, of course, also played there, so let's not forget about him. But Derek Harper was definitely one of the greatest ever to play at U of I. And finally, I never had this gentleman's autograph, and I've never seen him signed through the mail, but UNLV great Stacey Augmon. And if anybody remembers Stacey Augmon, he was part of those great UNLV teams back in the late 80s, early 90s. I think it was late 80s because he was playing in the NBA by 91, I want to say. But that featured Larry Johnson and Greg Anthony, and Stacey Augmon was a big part of that team as well. The Plastic Man, I believe, was his nickname because of his great ability to play defense, and very cool to add that to the collection. So all four of those collegiate great autographs, and now we're going to jump into a couple really nice ones. This one, Brian Grant, a very underrated player. He recently, I think in the last couple years, it's come out that he has become sick. I'm not really sure what that illness is, but he is not doing the best in health. But we're not going to talk about his health career. We're going to talk about his NBA career. Brian Grant was one of those, you know, lunch pail type of guys that played in the NBA. He, you know, did all the hard work, the rebounding, the defense, and, you know, he's probably best known as a Portland Blazer, but he, you know, was a very important part of the Miami Heat for many years as well. So I'm very happy to add Brian Grant to the collection as well. Alrighty, we'll put that up on the pedestal there. Alright, so this next one I added only because I knew that he has now since passed away, and he was an excellent collegiate basketball player. However, his NBA career was relatively short, and he passed away just a couple years ago, and that is former Syracuse Orangeman Fab Melo. Fab was, you know, like I said, a very good player in college. He played briefly for the Boston Celtics. However, he passed away at a young age of only 28 years old in his home Brazil just a couple years ago. So grabbed the Fab Melo autograph only because I didn't have one, and you know, I thought, being that, you know, he's no longer alive, that it'd be a good addition to the collection. Now this one, I had picked his autograph up in the past in a different lot, but this was before I knew he was going to be a Hall of Famer. So that's why I'm very happy to add a second one to the collection, and that is former Sacramento King, Charlotte Hornet / Los Angeles Laker, Vlade Divac on a signed card. And this one is also serial numbered to 49, and this is out of, I'm not really sure, Panini 2014-15 Game Changers. Not really sure what set that came out of, but this is actually the second Vladi autograph that I've added to my collection. I want to say about 4 or 5 years ago I picked another one up for dirt cheap. We're talking, you know, a buck or two. But now that he is enshrined in the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame, I definitely thought this would be worth picking up. All right, so we're still not finished. Starscream here is wondering, well, what goes in that last spot? Well, Starscream, this was the find of the card show, in my opinion. Not only was I so happy to find this autograph, but the price that this seller gave me was just amazing. You know, the bundled price for all of these. And I did find some more vintage cards, and I'm very happy to add to my collection. So it's kind of a very close 1-2 here of the find of the show, so to speak. But who else am I talking about other than one of the greatest hitters of the 1970s and 80s, a 2004 Fleer Legends of the Game, or Fleer Greats, Rod Carew. One of my favorite players of all time, one of the best hitters baseball has ever seen, Rod Carew, on a 2004 Fleer Greats. And this I was so happy to find. This is actually the first card that I found at the card show, and I immediately pulled it out, and as you can see, there's no prices on these. And this gentleman that I've bought from him numerous times. You know, we usually make a stack and then we negotiate type of thing. And I pulled this out and I said, what do you want for the Rod Carew? I said, I have to have that. You know, that's just a immaculate, beautiful card. What do you want for it? You know, he kind of smiled at me, and, you know, he knows that I'm a frequent buyer, so to speak. And he said, how about $5? I'm like, $5? Are you kidding me? For Rod Carew? I'll give you $5 all day for a certified Rod Carew autograph. So for only $5, and this didn't even cost $5 if you want to get down to it, because I'm going to tell you what I paid for all of these all together. Let me put Rod up here at the top, okay? So what would you think that I would pay for all these awesome autographs and game-used Tim Duncan cards? What do you guys think? So there was a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 cards there, okay? I said, well, what do you want for all this? You know, I made a stack. And he said, how about $35? So for $35, I got everything that you see here in this photo. Not Starscream, but all the cards in the photo here were only $35. That comes out to $3 each. So if you want to get technical, the Rod Carew only cost me $3. The Calvin Murphy only cost me $3. The Vlade Divac only cost me $3. I mean, I can go on and on. I mean, Fab Mello is probably not worth $3, but wow on Rod Carew. So, what do you guys think? Not a bad deal, huh? So let's move on to the next stack of cards. All right, so this next set, as usual, I went and saw my vintage guy. However, there was a second vintage guy that was at the show as well. And these were 50-cent cards. They're a little bit cheaper, you know, if you buy more. So for $10, I went through his box, and more or less, these are cards with the exception of the first two I'm going to show you, and this one, that I'm going to use for Through the Mail Thursday videos. So you'll be seeing hopefully a lot of these returned in the mail to me, and hopefully we'll get them signed. But for this small stack, which is fair, I picked up for $10, and I got a 1965 Topps pitching leaders with Juan Marichal on there. And interesting enough, I don't remember the year. I know the seller that I bought these from did tell me, but this is the MLBPA stamps collection, and if you look on the back, you can see that you're supposed to affix these to something. Maybe there was an official, yeah, it's a official sports collector's album. Now, originally these came in uncut sheets. However, obviously these have been cut. This one's been cut. And here's a Willie Stargell. There was a whole stack of these in there with some various Hall of Famers. We're talking the ilks of Ron Santo, Ferguson Jenkins, Joe Morgan, Willie McCovey, you know, guys, you know, that are Hall of Famers, but they're not Willie Mays. They're not, you know, Mickey Mantle or anything like that. And I thought for 50 cents I'd grab a couple of them. So for $1, so I grabbed the Willie Stargell, and I grabbed a Johnny Bench. So I thought those two were definitely worth $1, you know, 50 cents or whatever. And again, these were a little bit cheaper after 50 cents. So in total, the stack of 25 cards cost $10 with those three. So these 22 additional cards, and I'm just going to thumb through these really quick, and hopefully you're going to see these in future videos and I don't make it too blurry where you guys can't see these. So really quick, as you can see, vintage era 1960s and 70s cards of a lot of guys that are known through the male signers, you know. And when I go to these card shows, I literally sit there on my phone and I go through the list to see, one, if they're alive, but two, to see if they signed through the mail. I got a couple of those Barry Moores. And, you know, if they fit those two criteria, I typically buy them. And, you know, I come home and I look through the existing cards that I already own. Then there's 3 Eddie Fishers there, 3 of the same card, but I see if I have any other ones. Like, for example, when I was going through the cards, I'm like, I know I have that card, the John O'Donohue, so now I have 2. So I put them together when I get home, and then I go through the process of getting ready to mail them out. So, you know, again, $10 for the stack, not bad for vintage cards. You know, my recommendation is anytime you can find vintage cards for 50 cents or less from this era, you know, whether it's a Hall of Famer, whether it's, you know, somebody that you're trying to fill a set for or whatever, you know, at 50 cents, that's a pretty good price. You know, anymore with shipping charges and everything else, you know, you're going to pay way more than 50 cents for vintage cards if you try to buy them on the internet. So, cool to have that. Now, with that being said, I said that another vendor was there with some vintage football cards, and I'm not even going to start to try to show you all these because this is just a ridiculous amount of cards that I wound up buying. And I'm just going to set these on their side here the best that I can and tell you so you can see the enormity of this stack. I'm going to zoom out. This is roughly 300 cards. Roughly. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and count them all, and I hope you guys don't hold me to that. But all of these cards right here, I literally spent 5 hours at this guy's table going through all of his 1950s era or 1960s, 70s era football cards. And again, I'm not going to show all these to you. I've kind of started putting them in player order. Like, you know, I started sorting through them here. Like, there's 3 Russ Francises. And again, these aren't Hall of Famer names by any means, but with the same criteria that I just told you about the baseball cards. But as you can see, he only had 15 cents on these commons. 15 cents. Not 50 cents, not a quarter. 15 cents. And on top of that, some of them are in top loaders. A top loader's worth 15 cents. So like, you know, and like John Pitts here, you know, 10 cents. 10 cents. 10 cents for Margene Atkins, and there's 4 of them there. So I mean, you know, just to stick a few in the mail to Margene and say, hey, you mind signing 4? If he only returns 1 or 2 of them, great. You know, if he needs to keep a couple for himself. You know, Terry Nelson, Otis Sistrunk. You know, I paid a little bit more for Otis. You know, he's a little bit bigger name, but as you can see, you know, 10 cents, 10 cents, 10 cents. On down the list. I think the most I paid for a card was 50 cents out of this stack. 50 cents. I was actually sitting there, and you know how when you go through cards and you're like, oh man, that's too much. I was so nickel and diming myself, I guess you would call it, that I was actually turning cards down for 50 cents. Like normally I'd be all over, like I just said, cards for 50 cents. And I'm like, nah, 50 cents. I can get another, you know, 1 or 2 cards for a quarter instead. You know, and that's how bad I was about this. But, you know, as you can see, this is just an amazing amount of football cards from the 1970s. And, you know, and from what I can tell, if not all of these people, you know, because again, I was looking this up on my phone as I'm sitting there. Most of these people, these players, all sign through the mail. So hopefully you'll be seeing a lot of these come back my way here in the near future. And again, I mean, just look at this stack of top loaders. I mean, you can always use top loaders, as I always say, used or new, whatever. And, you know, these are just an amazing amount. As you can see, all of these that I bought, I got to the point where I forgot who I was looking for. I mean, I was kind of a little bit tired that day because I've been there all morning and all afternoon, and it was about 7 o'clock at night when I finally said, that's it. I mean, this one was only a nickel. I mean, 5 cents for the St. Louis Cardinals team leaders, which is awesome. But it was finally about 7 o'clock. And I was like, oh man, I'm so tired. I'm tired of looking through these cards. And I finally said, oh, I'm done. The heck with it. What I got is what I got. And, you know, as you can see, this stack between 200 and 300 cards definitely was worth the time to sit there and go through all these. So, what do you think I paid for these? You know, and again, a lot of these aren't really old. You know, there's, you know, some... He had older cards, however, a lot of them were people that had passed away. And not that they weren't good prices. It's just when you have a stack like this, you got to draw the line somewhere. So I went through all these. He added them all up. You know, every dime, every nickel, every 20 cents, every quarter. And he came up with $35 for the whole stack. And he said, you know what? Since you spent so much time with me today, you know, because we had a conversation for like 4.5 hours while I'm going through cards. We're talking about sports. We're talking about trading cards. We're, you know, talking about the Yankees game that was on TV at the time, the playoff game. And, you know, he's like, I enjoyed, you know, just hanging out with you for the last 4 hours or whatever. Give me $30, you can have the whole stack. And I said, sold. So for $30, I got all of these cards for future Through the Mail Thursday videos. So this pretty much wraps up day 1 of my card show. So I'm looking at the time on my clock. I'm going to actually cut this video into 2. So I ask you to stay tuned for part 2 of this video. And I will share that with you in a future episode. I will link it, of course, at the end of this episode as well. So I just don't want to make this a very long episode. We're already pushing 25 minutes. So tune into my next episode, and I'm going to share that with you, and it'll be linked right here at the end. Thanks for watching.